Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Last week, I took a shortcut, quote unquote, and ended up driving in circles for like half an hour. I missed my turn twice and, I argued with the GPS a little bit, but I still made it to the store eventually. I guess it's true what they say. All roads do lead to Rome.
Was the store you were going to called Rome?
No, I didn't think it would make sense if I said all roads lead to the grocery store. So,
I see.
Okay.
Well, having known you for decades now, several of them actually, this is not an odd thing for you. You could get lost in a town you have lived in your whole life.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes
even
that's
with
easier
the
for me to get
GPS.
lost.
Yes. So yeah, it's very interesting. But yes, all roads lead to Rome. I don't know. I mean, we definitely live in the United States, and Rome is on another continent that is not connected by land. So you'd have to drive onto a boat, I think, or a ship. I don't want to have that debate again. And then sail to some place where you could get on a road. But where is this? Where does this phrase come from? I assume it's just because Rome was super popular at a time frame, and so most of the trade went that way. But I have no idea. So I'm very curious to see where this all goes,
Hey.
and mostly because it doesn't mean anything to do with trade now. So that's the interesting part. So yeah, I'm excited for this.
According to Oxford English Dictionary, all roads lead to Rome means, quote, there are many different ways of reaching the same goal or conclusion, end quote. All right, so how did a simple fact about Roman engineering become a metaphor for life? It might sound like an exaggeration to say all roads lead to Rome, but in the ancient world, this was literally true. The Romans built some 50,000 miles, that's about 80,000 kilometers, of roads stretching from Britain through Spain and northern Africa and east to the Danube River and the Tigris-Euphrates River system. The first road, the Appian Way, was built in 312 BCE. Emperor Caesar Augustus erected a monument called the Millenarium Arium, or Golden Milestone, in Rome's Central Forum, and the distances along all of those 50,000 miles were measured from that point. And that was also the point at which all of the main Roman roads diverged. So if you were looking from above, the roads extending from this point resemble the spokes of a wheel. It's possible to see and even travel along portions of the Appian Way, or Via Appia, which connected Rome to Brindisi, Italy, despite the road being constructed more than 2,000 years ago.
The road near my house can't even last 3 years before they have to replace it.
It's impressive. So when they talk about Roman engineering, yeah, it's a thing.
I think maybe there's some planned obsolescence in what we're doing, but they probably didn't drive 2-ton vehicles over it all the time either.
True. Although, I mean, horses and carriages and stuff for 2,000 years, I mean, no.
I'm sure it's been repaired
Somewhere
in
in
some of that time frame.
So Appia was the first of 29 roads that extended out from Rome. Accounts of travel along the Appia began with the Latin poet Horace around 35 BCE, and many have written about it since. Our phrase, however, does not appear in print for another millennia-ish. So, around 1385, Geoffrey Chaucer penned the tale Troilus and Cressida. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when the realization that the physical roads near or through most cities led to Rome shifted into the more figurative idea that there are many ways to accomplish the same goal. However, the idea is expressed in Chaucer's work. I'm going to read the excerpt, and then we'll look at the translation so we can all understand what he was saying in, modern English. Quote, every wight which that to Rome went, halt not all o path or alway o manner, end quote. So white was a term that meant person. So this sentence would translate to every person who went to Rome did not follow the same path or method. Chaucer also uses the concept in the introduction to his work, Treatise on Astrolabe, which he penned around 1391. Quote, right as diverse paths lead diverse folk the right way to Rome, end quote. Chaucer is fairly well known for metaphor and allegory in his writing, and while he may not have been the first to express this concept, he has held the attention of enough people to have quickly and continually spread the idea into the world. The idea appeared in various letters and writings during the 1500s and the 1600s, but it was actually in the 1700s that the phrase started to take on a solid form as it appears today. The piece we will consider for this is The Correspondence of Baron Armfelt and the Other Conspirators Against the Swedish Government, translated from the Swedish copy published by the government at Stockholm by Gustav Moritz Armfelt, dated 1795. The excerpt is from a letter dated 15 March 1793 from M. Ehrenfrom to Baron Armfelt. Quote, I do not know how you will understand the communication Mademoiselle Rudenschweid has made me of your memorable remarks of the 22nd February, containing your ideas on a revolution in Sweden. But I assure you that they have afforded me the greatest satisfaction, and that I adopt them with my heart and soul. I have expressed the same approbation to Mademoiselle Rudenschweid, and begged her to follow your orders with all the care she is mistress of. One of the 4 papers enclosed in my letter to Vienna will have given you my ideas on the same subject. They do not advert to the expedient, which I own had scarcely occurred to me, of bringing over the Duke by the means of money. But this difference in the choice of our means ought not to stop our career. All roads lead to Rome, end quote.
Well, that all roads lead to Rome would definitely be a non sequitur if it were if it were not being used metaphorically here. So that makes sense.
Individuals interested in the past have looked to Rome basically since it was built. This was no different for John Henry Parker, who discussed the marvels of Roman invention in his 1874 work, The Archaeology of Rome, Volume 1, Issue 1. Quote, at South Passera, remains of the pavement of the old road may be seen with the substructure, and at Pian du Torri are remains of some tombs. The mere inspection of the remains of the roads of the ancient Romans is sufficient to show that there is no exaggeration in the words, Strabo and Dionysius, that their roads, with their aqueducts and their drains, were among the wonders of the world. These roads were not merely paved with polygonal blocks of basaltic lava, but also, to make them as short as possible, they were carried in straight lines over hill and dale. The tops of the hills cut through by deep trenches, as we see still in many places, for these great works of antiquity can never be effaced, or carried across valleys on embankments when necessary, as we may also see. By means of these roads or streets, via, placed under the inspection of persons of distinction called curators viarum, the Romans in their capital city could communicate with the principal cities of the world as then known, so that it became a true proverb that all roads lead to Rome. Another invention, entirely Roman, was and is still of the greatest convenience everywhere, that of putting a sippus or miliarium or milestone with the number upon it at each mile on every high road. This happy invention we owe, according to Plutarch, to the tribune Caius Gracchus. End quote.
That is super helpful because if you get into, say, a car accident or something, before there was GPS pings, you would need to be able to tell people where you were, and that meant paying attention to the mile markers as you went through.
Yeah.
On the highways and stuff.
Something that was kind of interesting as I was reading about this, there's some theory that the mile markers were more about the building than they were about the travel or passage across the roads, because they used a certain amount of rock or stones for every mile, and they dug out a certain amount of dirt,
Sure, that makes sense.
So I was like, well, that's interesting. It's like dual purpose mile markers there.
Likely, if it was created for one purpose, the other purpose just happened to be noticed and helpful later.
They're like, oh, this is super convenient.
Oh, this is convenient. Let's just leave those mile markers up then, huh?
Right. The Sun, December 14th, 1913, out of New York, New York, contained a full-page article predominantly comprised of two large images of sites in the city of New York. The page is titled New Boulevard and Completed Museum. The second image is of the Natural History Museum, which was a cool little historical tidbit to find as I was searching through things. It's the caption for the first image, however, that contains our phrase. Quote, Boulevard to connect City Hall Park with the Manhattan Bridge Plaza. All roads lead to Rome. The proposed boulevard from City Hall to Manhattan Bridge. This spacious driveway, picturesquely parked along its entire route, is to provide a fitting approach from the new Manhattan Bridge to the vicinity of City Hall. End quote. So basically, all roads lead to City Hall, I guess.
Seems more likely that all roads would lead to the post office, I guess, but
Yeah.
City Hall works too, I suppose.
The Irish Standard, October 27th, 1917, out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, contains a short article discussing the Catholic Church. This particular excerpt is a good example of the phrase being used figuratively. Quote, all roads lead to Rome. The Catholic Church takes man as she finds him, adapting herself to all moods and circumstances. She becomes all things to all, that she may win all. She draws the man of science through nature to nature's God. She appeals to the artist through his art, to the philosopher through his reason, to the man of feeling and imagination through his emotions, for all roads lead to Rome. End quote. Also some really great double meaning there. I just thought it was fantastic. The phrase made its way to the fashion scene in the ad section of the October 28, 1962 edition of the Evening Star out of Washington, D.C. Quote, Viva Italia by Eleni, Star Fashion Editor. Ambassador Sergio Finoatea of Italy, in remarks that opened recent Italy on the Potomac ceremonies, spoke of Italy's economic miracle. Part of the great comeback in the economy of Italy is laid directly at the door of her talented fashion designers, whose imagination, beauty of design, and high fashion appeal made all roads lead to Rome. End quote. Italy's influence on fashion has clearly stood the test of time, and this 1962 ad in the Evening Star captures a moment when that influence was being formally recognized. Ambassador Sergio, his remarks that fashion made all roads lead to Rome, speaks to the global reach of Italy's designers, whose the creativity, their style helped drive an economic resurgence. So if we look at Italy today, it's still a hub for high fashion and luxury. So I thought that was a clever phrasing and a good statement to use for that legacy of fashion there. Well, we have several modern uses to cover, and we will get to those right after we say thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds. On Mondays, we have a conversation about what movies, shows, books, podcasts, and whatever else everyone is enjoying. Tuesdays see early access to the week's podcast. Wednesdays have all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode. Thursday has patrons-only polls. And Fridays are our lightly edited, behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts you could imagine.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by me and direct access to talk with us. No algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
All Roads Lead to Rome is a 1982 song by The Stranglers from their album Feline. Here are the lyrics. Quote, the endless games played in the timeless zone remind me all roads lead to Rome. Inside the wall of the citadel, yellow chariots race, peasants and their peasant smells, hungry to touch your frightened face. All roads lead to Rome. End quote. And like any good 80s song, the last line repeats several times. All Roads Lead to Rome is a song from Steve Hackett's 2012 The Rome Project. Project in this case is spelled PROG in parentheses JECT. This song is an instrumental progressive rock song, and here's a little bit from the official website. Quote, "The Rome Project, featuring Steve Hackett and John Hackett, is a 500 copies limited CD single released in October 2012. It features Down to Domus aria, written by Steve and Italian composer and producer Vincenzo Rica, and Towards the Future, written by John Hackett and Vincenzo Rica as well. Both tracks come in a different version to the ones featured in the forthcoming CD album, titled The Rome Project. This instrumental concept album celebrates Rome in its 2,765th anniversary. It is enhanced by the marvelous talents of Prague glories such as Francesco di Giacomo, David Cross, David Jackson, Richard Sinclair, Nick Magnus, the Hackett brothers, and other friends." End quote. And if you are a progressive rock fan, then you will know who some of those people are. That's not my typical genre to listen to, so I wasn't sure, but yeah, it sounds like it's really cool for those people, so check it out.
I think celebrating Rome in its 2,765th anniversary is possibly reaching a bit, but right, that's fair. Fair enough.
You got a really niche market here.
Yeah, hey, Hackett Brothers, I guess if you needed a shtick, go for it, you know?
Yeah. All Roads Lead to Rome is a 2016 movie starring Sarah Jessica Parker, Raul Bova, Rosie Day, and Claudia Cardinale. Quote, "Maggie is an uptight single mother and college writing teacher from New York City. In an effort to reconnect with her troubled teen daughter, Summer, she decides to embark on a journey to a Tuscan village where she frequented in her younger days. Upon arrival, Maggie runs into Luca, a handsome former lover who is still a bachelor and lives with his 80-year-old mother, Carmen. Summer, missing her bad boy boyfriend in New York City, and Carmen, secretly planning a wedding against Luca's wishes to Marcelino, her one true love in Rome, impulsively steal Luca's car and race off to Rome. Maggie and Luca quickly pursue, allowing two mismatched couples to spend some time together and develop a new understanding of each other." End quote.
Man, I missed it at some point that they were in a Tuscan village, and I was like, how'd they steal a car in New York City and drive it all the way to Rome? I'm very confused about this.
Like, almost none of it takes place in New York City, I don't
Right,
think.
and then I had to look back at it and was like, oh, Tuscan village. Right, okay, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I glossed over that in my brain, apparently.
As part of our exploration of this phrase, I'd like to turn to a modern-day look at the legacy of these ancient paths. Nina Strachlick's article, published in June 2022, sheds light on the preservation efforts surrounding a Roman-era superhighway. With stunning visuals captured by Andrea Frazetta, the piece not only dives into the historical significance, but also highlights the current challenges of keeping such relics intact. Here's a little bit from the article. Quote, "The Appian Way symbolized the Roman Empire's might. Now Italy is restoring the ancient road, hoping to create a pilgrimage route through history. There's a McDonald's on the outskirts of Rome, where, after ordering a pancetta-laden Big Mac, you can peer through the glass floor and see, a few yards below, flat gray paving stones of an ancient Roman road and twisted skeletons embedded in a 2 millennia old gutter. These are remnants of an offshoot of Europe's first major highway, the Appian Way." End quote. The Via Appia was the first of the major roads leading to Rome. It has witnessed over 2,000 years of human drama, and we are going to delve into it a little bit more in our behind the scenes. You can check out our behind the scenes videos every Friday on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
It definitely seems to have hit the height of drama now, where you can only view it if you go into a McDonald's.
Spoiler, there's a staircase, so you don't have to be inside of the McDonald's.
I feel like if you have to go to a McDonald's to go see a road, then is that road really worth it?
It's sort of happenstance. I mean, it's a 50,000-mile road, so it's got to, at some point it passes
And
a
you're
McDonald's.
talking about McDonald's. At least they had the forethought to build the road right where the McDonald's was going to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just good planning. They was the Romans. Come on. Also from 2022 is the song All Roads Lead to Rome. This one is in a completely different style than the last song we looked at. This has a mellow vibe, guitar and bass, and chill vocals. I quite like this song. The YouTube video states that it was recorded live at Tresor Fabrik in Duisburg during the making of Jamie Faulkner's album Allen Keys and Broken Bits. Here is what the artist shared. Quote, "All Roads Lead to Rome is one that I am extremely proud of and one that marks a milestone in my career. Over the last years, I've been contemplating how I can become a better artist and improve my craft. During these musings, the one theme that I keep returning to is that of honesty. I know you have all experienced moments when listening to music where all the hairs on your skin stand up on end. Moments like these only occur when you are so connected or deeply touched by a piece of music that you cannot help but feel it emotionally and also physically. Traditionally, the music that has that effect on me has always been raw, rough, heartfelt, gutsy music. Music that is delivered in such a way that I truly believe the performer. Music that speaks a truth. For me, All Roads Lead to Rome sits in this space. It's a heart on your sleeve love song that isn't coated in sugar, yet is told, warts and all, about a love that is not always easy, a love that, even through every difficulty, bears a silver lining." End quote. All Roads Lead to Rome is an acrylic on canvas painting by Jill Dowell of France. The description of the abstract piece on Saatchi art reads, quote, "The highest quality professional paints were used. Palette knives were used to create this lightly textured painting. A signed and dated certificate of authenticity is included, and the painting is signed. Because no matter what path we take, we always end up where we're meant to be." End quote. Now, this is an interesting description, but that was basically just their way of saying that this is a unique piece of art and that it does have a lot of different textures involved.
It is definitely abstract and looks like a lot of splotches on a page. I have no idea how this is supposed to represent All Roads Lead to Rome, but all right, it's whatever.
I would say, like, thinking about it from an artistic lens, I'm not an art expert, by the way. There are a few different methods that are used. There are some bold elements of color and line. Some are more contained, and other aspects feel mildly chaotic. But, they all kind of come together.
Interesting. Is there like maybe a poem with it that rhymes?
I'm sorry. There was no rhyming.
All right, then.
Author Sabrina Fidel is currently on tour for her book, All Roads Lead to Rome, published in June of 2024. The book has been placed into the categories of teen and young adult fiction, teen and young adult romance, and teen and young adult social issues. Here's a synopsis from Penguin Random House. Quote, "When the daughter of a diplomat fake dates a Scottish celebrity in Italy, she soon finds herself living her own Roman holiday until the feelings get real and the paparazzi's knives come out." End quote. The phrase "all roads lead to Rome" has endured because it speaks to something universal, the idea that no matter the path, we all find our way. It's a reminder that our journeys, however different, are connected. That's what makes it so powerful. It ties us back to history, to the roads that once guided people physically and now guide us in our own ways towards whatever we're pursuing. It's a phrase that gives space for individuality while recognizing the different ways we move forward. I hope that we can all embrace the unique paths we take, creating our own stories and enriching all of our experiences. That's about all we have time for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
All right, it is Patrons Poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, which embarrassing thing are you most likely to do? 2 uncomfortable incidents rose to the top of the votes. It seems our listeners are most likely to either trip in front of a crowd or experience a wardrobe malfunction. Some of the other votes included forget someone's name and spill your drink on someone. I can say I'm definitely in the wardrobe malfunction camp. I always keep a spare of pair pants with me at work in case I rip ones I'm wearing, which has happened on numerous occasions because I wear clothes until they fall apart. One time, I ripped my pants right in the butt when teaching in front of a classroom of adults. I finished the unit, making sure I kept my back to most folks, and grabbed my bag while heading to the bathroom to change. I was embarrassed, but I was also kind of proud of myself for covering it so that no one noticed. Except a year later, I had one of those students in a different class, and they told me how the whole class was talking about it at lunch, how they thought it was like super professional of me, yet really hilarious how I ripped my pants in class and then played it off like absolutely nothing happened. So then I got to be super embarrassed all over again because, yep, they all noticed. And I did not feel the slightest bit good that they thought that I was being super professional about it. It was just total embarrassment all over again.
I think it's amazing though, because like they didn't say anything. Like that's fantastic. Heather shared, quote, I've had many wardrobe malfunctions, too embarrassing to name. But one I still remember over a decade later is the time I managed to somehow walk myself out of my shoe on the way to a job interview. I had to hop back several steps like an unlucky Cinderella, end quote.
Oh man. Yeah,
I love
it's
that
rough when
story,
you have wardrobe
Heather.
malfunctions at an interview process. That's
Yeah,
like
okay, fair.
that's the point when you're just like, "Oh no, not right now, not like this."
I'm like, well, they're going to get to know me soon enough. I'm one of those people that are like quirky and cute as a gimmick in a TV show or a movie, but probably really annoying in real life because like I trip on things, fall flat on my face occasionally. Once while I was in Rome, actually, I also run into a lot of doorways. Like the door is open, but still I run into like the frame of the door somehow. I also spill things. I once spilled coffee all over the conference table during a meeting. I'd worked with most of the team for a while, but the new hire was shocked as I quickly saved my laptop and moved my neighbor's phone aside to swipe most of the coffee back into my cup. And the rest of the team barely reacted and just continued the meeting because I guess they're used to my clumsiness. So
Please tell me you didn't drink the coffee after you swiped it back in your cup.
God, no, I would never do that.
I don't know. I guess the cup is a vessel to hold things, but
I kept the.
you said swept it back into your cup, and I'm like,
know.
nope. I dislike every part of this now.
I would say though that was not nearly as bad as when I was working as a server at one of those 24-hour breakfast spots. I was carrying a tray of waters to a 12 top. When I managed to tip the entire 160 ounces of ice cold water onto a young woman who was unfortunately wearing white.
The amount of secondhand embarrassment that you have just passed on to all of our listeners, Shauna, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be embarrassed all over again for that thing you did then, which is atrocious, and the thing you have done now to our listeners and me, which is once again atrocious. Ugh.
Oh, it was so bad because you know how stuff happens in slow motion?
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Oh, no, that's got to have been. Wow. I've always marveled over how wait staff can just carry all that stuff around, and I'm just like, nope, I would lose it. It would end up all of it in a customer's lap.
Yeah,
and
sometimes
no,
it does.
I just can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yeah, that was a tough moment too because I was like, do I just pay for her meal or like the whole table? How many people's meals do I have to pay for here? Yeah, no tips.
Well, JGP said, quote, I forget people's names so often, it's not even embarrassing for me anymore. I'm more surprised if I remember a name, end quote. Jan added, quote, I'm bad with remembering people's names, so that's going to be the one for me, end quote. Yeah, I'm not bad at people's names, but I remember their names better if I can associate it with a face. So if I have only met someone but not actually put their face and their name together, then I will remember their face later, but I'm not necessarily going to remember their name unless I can take some time to put those two things together, and then it's okay. But I know that about me, so that's something that I can work through. Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid, and patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks again for joining us. We will talk to you again next week. Until then, remember, words belong to their users.